There is sort of implicit in this conversation that we're going to talk about quantum and AI. I am of the belief, and I don't want to offend anyone's sensibilities here in the slightest, but I don't think everybody in this room understands that intersection between quantum and AI. So, like, can we start super basic there? What's the overlap? Why?
Absolutely. This is by far the most common question I've been asked the past 2 years or so with all of the celebration of the AI accomplishments. AI and quantum will be essential for each other, and it's a two-way street. So AI will be essential for quantum. In fact, we're already starting to use it for our compiler efficiency. We're using AI to make it more efficient. But quantum will also be more efficient for AI because right now, as impressive as AI seems, it's just using conventional computing, right? It's still silicon-based transistors. But quantum computing, as we all know, it can do calculations which would be impossible for normal computers. And so there's a lot of things which will be essential. So for example, generative quantum AI is something that we're already starting to do, where we use a quantum computer to produce data. In this case, we're preparing quantum states of the hydrogen molecule. Then we use AI to assess that and then feed that back in to redo it. And so it's learning each time. But the quantum part is essential for that we wouldn't be able to do this type of calculation without the quantum part. And so in this example, we're trying to figure out the ground state of the hydrogen molecule. But this is an example where quantum will be essential for AI. And just sort of signifying how important this is, we're one of the first partners for this new NVIDIA center that they're setting up in Boston with Harvard, MIT, and us as some of the original partners. And so this is a very long-term story, but AI and quantum will be essential for each other.
I'm going to keep pushing on this because, like, we heard Jerry, for example, earlier say, where the sweet spot is low data, high compute. AI, as
That's
we
right.
often know it, is basically high data, high compute. Why? What subset of problems? Where does
So what Jerry said is absolutely right. So it's not that quantum processes a lot of data. It's that it's able to look for patterns. It's able to detect patterns which would be missed by conventional computing. And so you can let other forms of computation handle the big data part, but there's some types of calculations. So chemistry is an example. Some machine learning algorithms are examples where only quantum can really do the calculation. And so that's the sweet spot, is singling those type of calculations off for the quantum part, let other conventional types of computing handle the rest. And so, yeah, we're just now beginning to figure out what this intersection is. But it's good that people have already started to think about this. And again, this is what everyone's been asking me for the past 2 years with all the attention.
There's a reason I started there, because the end of the session description, which, as you will all have learned by now, I'm super obsessed with, make sure we give you what you've been told you're going to get, talking about reaching the logical qubit threshold to unleash quantum-powered AI. So just last question in this direction.
Yeah.
Which are the bits of AI that we all know about already, have heard about, that quantum's like really bad at, is not even in contention for being improved?
So quantum is not good at ones where you need one precise answer. Conventional computing is good at that. So like an accounting spreadsheet or something where you're simply adding numbers up, that's better done by conventional computing. The big data, as you just mentioned, that's better done by conventional computing. Quantum really shines for the things like chemistry and some machine learning algorithm where you have a huge parameter space of possible choices, and quantum computing will identify the correct answer. So that's where it really shines.
Okay. And coming to the title of the session itself, Crossing the Threshold, I would keep coming sort of back to this. I think it's usually instructive to ask, like, for you, what's the threshold?
So the threshold, so in some sense, we've already started to pass this. We already have practical applications of quantum, which sometimes surprises people. For example, we have already come up with a way of producing secure key generation. So using our quantum origin platform, we can do this using a Bell inequality. And then recently, we've been able to do this another way using random circuit sampling, which was originally developed by Google as sort of a benchmarking tool. No one thought it would have a practical application, but we recently have found that it does. We expect to have, so we're already starting to do things using quantum algorithms and such, which are interesting. They're sort of scientific problems that we're able to tackle better than conventional computing. It will take a little bit more work to find obvious commercial applications of those, but we expect within just a few years that we will have actual commercial applications. The rate of progress has been extraordinary. So for example, in just a few months later this year, we'll be unveiling our Helios quantum computer, which is our 4th generation machine. We expect to have 50 logical qubits. 50 logical qubits from that. So we'll have 96 physical, 50 logical. which will unlock a huge class of things, which would be impossible by normal computers. So this is way, way beyond anything that could be done with conventional computing.
Sure. You said, though, in a few years, we'll have commercial applications.
Yeah.
Just to say, you know what they are, or you're hoping that they're going to make themselves apparent?
I can speculate. So chemistry is obviously the most obvious example because conventional computers are so bad at that. And so that's why we at Quantinuum, we focused so much attention on doing chemistry things. We have this Quanto platform, which has distilled all of these different algorithms we've developed. But again, just later this year, we'll have 50 logical qubits, which I think is shocking to a lot of people. And then our roadmap in another 4 years with the Apollo, we expect to have hundreds, so a plurality of hundreds of logical qubits. And so there's things that we'll be able to do in just a few years, which would be unimaginable today.
Like, come on. It's not that chemistry and simulation is not high value. Tis, but like, go on, speculate.
So one of my favorite examples is drug development. So if you're a pharmaceutical company, I was actually shocked to learn that it takes about $1 billion and 10 years to develop one drug, to bring one drug to market. But imagine if you could quickly scan through 1 million different possible drugs, quickly simulate how they behave, and focus in on the most promising ones. So we think we'll be able to do things like that in just a few years. And so we're already starting to, as I said, we're starting to get to things which are scientifically interesting. In just a few years, we think we will have actual commercial applications.
We talked in the panel earlier on about that sort of basically working backwards from the applications, getting the potential end users involved. Where are you on that? The degree to which the hardware can't evolve it in the best way, or practices can't evolve in the best way until the end users are brought into the equation?
Yeah, no, we've had, so as I said, we're about to unveil our 4th generation machine. So we've had many users for several different generations of our hardware be using it for a variety of different things. What's interesting is how much it's evolved. There's been a lot of talk today about benchmarks and such. So 6 years ago, in 2019, we claimed that we would increase the performance by a factor of 10 every year. So this is referring to the quantum volume, which was a benchmark developed by IBM originally. And at the time, that almost seemed comically ambitious. And so the reason I'm mentioning this is because just yesterday, we announced our quantum volume is now 2 to the 23. So that's 8 million and change, if you want to do the math. And the reason that that's so significant is this is the first time anyone's done this, but it's also probably the last time, because the definition of a quantum volume requires the use of a conventional computer to do some of the simulations, and that's kind of been surpassed now. So in a sense, we've kind of graduated beyond quantum volume. And it's been a very good benchmark. It's difficult to cheat because it requires both high qubit count and high fidelity, but we have now kind of graduated beyond that. And so we're very excited about the next step of this.
The next benchmark.
The next benchmark, which I don't know what it will be, but quantum volume seems to have kind of reached its peak of usefulness.
Just because we've reached the peak of what classical computers can do to be there.
Right. So there's going to be other useful benchmarks, but it seems that quantum volume is not going to be it. At least not obviously so.
I mean, what do you take? What do you make of the assertion that the way to benchmark these things is ultimately, again, the who's buying, the who's making money from their return on investment and so on? It feels like looking really far down the telescope.
Can we rephrase that again?
Your view on benchmarking instead of looking for some really involved numerical.
No,
physics,
absolutely.
But to the economics, basically.
No, absolutely. So ultimately, that's going to be the reason people do this, is because people can make money off quantum computers. And so that, in a sense, later on, that will be the useful benchmark. I remember, like in the early days, people would brag about PCs, like how many flops it could do and the megahertz cycles and everything like that. And then that kind of graduated to what can you do with it? No one cares about the technical details. It's like, well, what could I do with this that I couldn't with the others? It's going to be like that with quantum computing, where until now, we haven't focused on the benchmarks because groups need to compare, this versus that. But you're absolutely right. Very soon, it's going to be, well, which computer can I use to do this and that? The reason that Quantinuum's progress has been so amazing is that 6 years ago, we said, this is what we will do. And we delivered at every step. And again, it seemed very, very ambitious back then, but we've actually been able to do that for 6 years now.
Right. There's a couple of questions coming in. Do feel free to submit some more with the few minutes we have left. Coming back to the AI question, I suppose, there's this continual mention of thresholds, what happens on the other side. Does the AI landscape look different when quantum is playing its role, or does it handle problems that perhaps don't touch people's lives? There's a question here. I'll read it to you.
Yeah.
How bad or evil can generative quantum AI get?
Yeah, no, I suspected that was the motivation for the question. AI and quantum are both tools, and like any tool, since the invention of the first tool, I guess fire, it can be used for good or evil. You can do good things, you can do bad things, and so with AI, we've seen some amazing things, but we've also seen some harmful things, and so it won't be any different. I guess it's just up to us to be responsible in how we use this. With great power comes responsibility.
Epic method.
Spider-Man, yes.
But back to the question of does quantum AI end up dealing with problems that don't touch people's lives, right? More the chemistry or the simulation, or do we get to the things where I log onto the cloud as a normal, average, everyday person, consumer, solving problems with quantum AI that help me in some way? I know that's a little bit of a reach, but you know what I'm driving at.
Yeah, no. So ultimately it will be consumer facing. People and even individuals will be using this, and I'm sure there will be some bad actors who will be using this. And so like the most obvious bad use of quantum is of course hacking with Shor's algorithm and defeating encryption and everything. And I'm sure there will be people who try to do that. There just have to be some safeguards set up to protect against that sort of thing. In the question, the mention of deepfakes, yes, they're already getting very good, and I'm sure with quantum they'll get even better. So ultimately, there will just have to be safeguards, but that's not really specific to quantum. That's just kind of an issue with technology in general.
Again, with a when. Everybody wants the when. Where would you put a cryptographically relevant quantum computer in time? 3, 5, 10 years?
It is possible, based on the progress that we've seen, and that we've even been doing at Quantinuum, it is possible to have a cryptographically relevant quantum computer in just 5 years, believe it or not. And so it's good. NIST and such have been developing post-quantum encryption to do this. So it's good people have already been thinking about this for years, but this is not decades away. I saw Michaela Mosca in the audience here, so he's certainly the expert on this, but we believe it could be in as soon as 5 years that people could start hacking.
It was really just set myself up to do something I told Peter Knight that I would, which is use his phrase, quantum apocalypse, crypto apocalypse. A suggestion, carbon per compute as a benchmark for computing. I mean, maybe for ills done to the world rather than performance.
Yep. So that is very important, especially now. There's so much attention focused on like how many GPUs are being used just to kind of do silly things, and I'm being polite. So last year when we were benchmarking our H2 machine, we actually found that it was 30,000 times more energy efficient than a conventional computer would be to do the same algorithm. And so the good news is that quantum is intrinsically very energy efficient. Unfortunately, as you all know, quantum will never replace conventional computing, and so that problem will still exist.
Well, it's all and instead of or, right? In sort of all of these things. At the mention of algorithms, what does the sort of the landscape for quantum AI algorithms look like relative to all other quantum apps? I honestly don't know. Is there the same sort of parameter space? Is there the same potential for huge gains yet unseen?
Absolutely. This is still very much in the Wild West. Nobody really knows for sure. So the example that I mentioned, like the hydrogen molecule, the ground state. So that's kind of a simple example, but it's one that we're already starting to do, where we're generating a quantum state, measuring the energy, using that information, feeding it back, and improving on that. So this generative quantum AI, this is going to be tremendously important, but no one really knows the specific form that it will take.
I just mean the sort of implication, I guess, that the promise is clear now and enormous and being pursued, but that jumps in algorithms specifically for quantum AI make it like open up a whole new world not yet imagined. Do you see that any more in the AI end of things than in everything to date before quantum got AI sensible?
Yeah, I actually don't know the answer to that. Yeah.
Excellent. Fodder for discussion after, because we're out of time.
Yep. Okay.
Thank you very much, Mark. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely.